Hello, everyone. We're back on the Orange Visuals podcast, and today we have a very special guest, a very long list of accomplishments. Remington Lyman, thank you for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Vlad.
Remington is a very accomplished real estate investor, and along with that, he is the brokerage owner of REAFCO and of REAFCO Commercial, and he's involved in many different organizations that we will get into. Remington, you seem like a really busy guy. I thank you for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So I kind of want to start off in the very beginning with Connecticut. Can you tell me a little bit about your life there? Because we'll get a little bit into your rifle career, mostly just because it was so impressive. Like you had done so much with that, and kind of how has that built you as a person?
Yeah, definitely. Since I can remember, I was always shooting. So I started shooting when I was 2.
Mhm.
I would, my parents would give me, it was a 22 cricket rifle. So it was maybe like 2 feet long. And yeah, target practice, competition target shooting. Most people don't know what it is. So to kind of give you a visual picture of it, it's like archery, like with the Robin Hood. It's a big circle, but
Yeah.
imagine that, but a lot smaller. So we're basically aiming for what's the equivalent of the size of a dot of a pin
Oh wow.
at 50 feet. And so that's what I grew up doing. It taught me a lot of discipline. My parents also wanted me to be very good at school. So I had to balance school if I wanted to go shoot, and competing in rifle allowed me to travel the world at a very young age. I went over to Azerbaijan, to Spain. I was shooting the World Cups, and ultimately I got a scholarship at the Ohio State University to compete on the rifle team in 2012. So moved out here, and that's why I'm in Columbus, Ohio.
Okay. Yeah. One thing I'm interested in is, did you have any other considerations to where to go else, like for college? Was it only Ohio State that was like scholarship, or was there like somewhere else that you were considering too?
Yeah, no, my parents are pretty crazy. I think I maybe did visits to like 16 schools with rifle teams, and I think that's a majority of the schools that have rifle teams.
Oh,
I did official visits at Moorhead and Ohio State. So those were the two ones. And honestly, Ohio State didn't really want me, but their coach knew my parents from way back when. And the Moorhead was, it was okay. They didn't, I wasn't like the top recruited athlete at the time. But yeah, picked Ohio State, and I'm glad I came.
mm-hmm. And then, so I want to go a little bit into your Ohio State. At the time, you were going for a career in finance, right?
Mhm.
You went for economics degree, right? I believe.
I majored in finance, minored in economics. Yeah.
What was the goal with that? What was your primary like motivation for doing that career?
Yeah, growing up, I always liked money. My dad owned a public shooting range and gun store in Wallingford, Connecticut. So having him, seeing him run his own business and manage his own books, and have the luxury of being an entrepreneur, being able to create your own schedule, take the vacations you want, spend the money on what you wanted instead of being tied to a set income, really intrigued me. So I figured I would set myself up with a finance major. And then I really liked econ and learning how more high level, how supply and demand worked. So got a minor in that. And I figured that I could graduate, get a job at Wall Street, make a bunch of money, then inherit the business and go that route. But as you know, it turned out to be much different.
Mm-hmm. One thing I'm interested in was, what was that feeling after the Olympic trials? Because I looked at your OSU rifle career, very, very successful. You were a captain. You guys went to NCAA championships, and eventually you went to Olympic trials. It doesn't say exact amount, but it just says you finished top 10.
Yeah.
Did that hurt at all? Like not being able to make it in?
Yeah, I was just very happy to be able to go to the Olympic trials, to qualify for that, and then to not only qualify, but perform as well as I did. I think that year we had one quota spot, so only the top person in the qualifiers made it. But I was happy. It worked out very well because the Olympic trials were right at the end of my senior year. So I didn't have to go and train in Colorado Springs at the Olympic Training Center.
Mm,
I had the option of doing that but I'd have to do it for 4 more years, wait an entire cycle.
yeah.
And you're not really making any money. You're not starting your career. You're pretty much just waking up, training, eating, training, learning more about the sport, and then going to bed. Some people would pick up side jobs as coaching, but it wasn't that lucrative. So yeah, I figured, you know, end it there and start my career and start making some money.
Mhm. So then you were telling me about how you wanted to go in investment banking, and so the home of investment banking is like New York City.
Yep.
I'm interested why you stayed in Columbus, Ohio, especially because you don't have roots here. Like you don't have anything holding you down here besides college.
Yeah, so I did pretty well in school. I think I had maybe like a 3.7, but I mean, there were a lot of people that were way smarter than me. And I didn't focus on any of my professional development being an athlete. I wasn't really getting good internships during the summer that would set me up for the investment banking route. So I had the bright idea of becoming a bank teller my senior year at Chase because I'm like, oh, I could get into JP Morgan that way. And so I actually worked part-time, 20 hours on top of school, on top of competing my entire senior year. And I never told my parents because I took all the money and just put it all in in the stock market. And I was afraid that if I told them that I had a part-time job, they'd stop paying for my expenses and my college.
Yeah, that
So
makes sense.
yeah, I did that, and that definitely did not set me up. Turns out, not too many investment banking firms are looking at bank telling experience as a
Yeah.
valid work experience. So, yeah, fortunately, I got a job at JP Morgan, the private bank, actually, after I graduated. So that was really good. I was, I'm very grateful for JP Morgan, Jamie Dimon, even though he wasn't my hiring manager to take me on. I learned a lot, and ultimately, I learned that I did not want to work corporate. So my first year I worked really, really hard and I learned all the different aspects of my job in the time that maybe it took my average coworker 6 years to do. I did in a year to learn all different because I really wanted to get a big promotion at the end. And at the end of the year, they gave me 2%. I'm like,
Oh,
okay, well, I took econ, I know there's about the Fed targets 2% inflation every year. So I get 2% raise, 2% inflation. That
no increase, basically. Yeah.
so I'm like, okay, this kind of sucks. Maybe I'll just apply for another job. I got another job at JP Morgan as an underwriter for the private bank. And that was really cool because my specific group that I was underwriting was the financial sponsors. So all the hedge funds in New York City, so
Yeah.
kind of what I wanted to get to the first place. And these were like the leaders of the hedge funds, the CEOs. I can't name names, but the top people that you see on Bloomberg. And I would underwrite their tax returns. I would underwrite their personal financial statements. And one thing I noticed was that they all owned investment real estate. So I'm
Mm.
like, okay, I'm a business major. I'm familiar with money. It seems like everyone who is wealthy owns real estate of some sort. So let me go out and buy a property. And so my business partner or my roommate at the time, my first business partner, and we were desperately trying to figure out different businesses. And I came back from work the one day. I'm like, hey, all these guys own investment property. Let's go out and buy a property instead of renting this apartment that we have. And so we go out and we go into contract on a single family home on the south side of Columbus. We go into contract like most first time buyers. We get the inspection report and we're like, oh my God, this house was built
Mhm.
120 years ago. I'm scared, terminate. After our realtor got done cursing us out, which I do the same thing now. She found us a duplex, and we're like, okay, like we did want to build up a real estate portfolio. I guess this is kind of expediting things, so we ended up buying a duplex in Old North Columbus, just south of Clanville, north of the university, and we moved in the other side. It was completely vacant. We fixed up the other side a little bit. We added an extra bedroom and we rented it out. It was off cycle for campus and it was close enough to campus and it was big enough where you really needed to be on the campus cycle. So we got it leased up for less than we thought we could get it for, but at least we had money coming in. And then on our side, we leased up our extra bedroom and he had a girlfriend, so I'm like, okay, if the girlfriend moves in, she's got to pay us a little bit of money in rent. And she wasn't too happy about that. But, she did it. And when it was all said and done, we were making about $50 to the good without paying any of the mortgage, property tax, insurance ourselves. So it's pretty sweet. We
Yeah.
went from renting to not paying anything and actually making money and building wealth.
Yeah, not the worst first investment experience. I'm not gonna lie. That's
Yeah.
really good.
Yep. So we were real estate investors without even trying. And come to find out, now I found out that that's called what's a house hack. And so we got our first property. Well, I'm kind of on a tangent. What other questions do you have?
No, 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 that's good. I really wanted to hear the story. I mean, I'm just interested also because what I was listening to your past interviews kind of about like how it happened, like you got that first property, and then after you kind of like were like, okay, I'm kind of done with JP Morgan Chase. Like I'm still gonna show up to work, but like this is my new primary thing, and you start focusing on that. And can you just take me through the process? Because I was reading somewhere that you had 10, it was either you bought 10 units and then you left one purposely for you to finish. How was that again? Can you
Yeah.
explain?
So, I sort of figure out that I wasn't going to become the hedge fund, financially free person by working at JP Morgan underwriting the hedge fund guys. So like I got to make a change. And then this real estate is really taking off. I'm building a lot of wealth. I'm not paying any of the money myself. So let's keep buying rental properties. So my business partner and I, we took turns doing house hacks. So I would sign on the debt on one property, and then the next property he would sign on the debt, and we'd take turns because you couldn't just keep buying owner
Yeah.
occupieds. It had to be, somewhat believable. And so we bought two more 4 units, kind of doing the same strategy really quickly after that. And so we got the 10 doors. And he hated his job. He was working at Honda. And he was like, hey, we're making like a few $1,000s every month not working. And we were shopping at Aldi. We were bringing $5 footlongs to the restaurants with our buddies. And we were bringing flasks to the bars. So we were like saving a bunch of money
Yeah.
really quickly. So he was like, hey, I'm not going to work anymore. I'm like, okay, well, we can't keep buying properties because you need W-2 income.
Mhm.
So I guess I'm kind of on my own now. And so what I started doing is, okay, if I want to find a really good deal, I got to start cold calling. So I would go into work and I would get to work a little bit early at 7:30 so I could leave at 5:30 or 4:30, beat the rush hour traffic. And I could cold call for a couple hours, maybe 3 hours if I really pushed it, these property owners, until it got too late and try to ask them, if they'd sell me their house. And if I could get a good deal, maybe I could raise some money, buy it cash, do hard money to buy it. And the JP Morgan, I was basically started mailing it in at work. I was doing the very bare minimum not to get fired. And everyone knew I was doing real estate on the side. And JP Morgan, as I don't hate on JP Morgan. I
Yeah.
really like it. But as any good corporation does, they make, cuts every now and then. And so they were decided to cut at 1.3% of their asset management across the board. So I think I was like one of the first interviews they like brought in, and the firing manager was like crying, like, "Hey, we're gonna offer you this 45-day on-call employment and then 7 weeks of severance," because I got my continuous employment from back when I was a teller at Chase. So I
Yeah.
was technically there for a while, 4 years, and so basically when it was all said and done, 3 months, because my manager was like, "Hey, you don't have to come back to work for these 45 days, just because they didn't want us accessing confidential client information anyways. So yeah, that was great. So I was started to kind of freak out at first, but I'm like, you know what? I'll just join all these professional organizations. So I joined Urban Land Institute. I joined Ohio State Center for Real Estate and a few other real estate focused professional organizations, and started figuring out, hey, I got 3 months. What should I really do with my career? I really like real estate. I really like sales. Back when I was a teller, I was selling credit cards and bank accounts, but I still really liked it.
Yeah.
So, what goes with sales and real estate? Being a realtor. So I decided to get my real estate license, got that in like a month. I powered through the classes and started trying to do sales. And towards the end of that 3 months, when I was going to stop getting a paycheck from my old job, I had a girlfriend at the time and I hadn't made a sale. And I went to her, my girlfriend, now wife, Ellen, I went to her. I'm like, hey, I feel kind of pathetic. I'm about to not be making any money. I haven't made a sale yet. What should I do? And she was like, you really hated your 9 to 5 job. Why don't you just give the sales a couple of years, try it out. You don't need, with the money you're making on real estate, being a landlord, you don't need money,
Yeah.
tomorrow. We don't have kids or anything. So I'm like, okay, that's great. And then maybe like a few weeks after that, I made my first sale, made a $9,000 commission. And I'm like, oh man, I just made, 1/6 of what I was making in a year in one sale. So it was off to the races from there. And we kind of, yeah, took off.
One thing I'm interested in that you brought up is you talked about how you joined a bunch of organizations for real estate. And we were talking about this before the podcast. And I was just interested because we're gonna talk about them a little later. You're in a lot of stuff. You're co-chair of the athletic club. You do a lot of organizations. You donate a lot. Back then, who was kind of guiding you and mentoring you to do that? Was it more of just like a, hey, I don't really know what to do, but real estate, these organizations are for real estate. Should I just follow them? Because there is a lot of stuff for realtors out there. Like,
Yep.
and there's a lot of crap out there, and there's a lot of good stuff.
Yep.
So it's more of like, how did you decide, hey, these are like the good organizations. This is what I'm going to go after. This is who I'm going to talk with.
Yeah, great question. So I was kind of brought up around older people. My parents, uh, much older than the average parents my age. I'm 30, and my mom is like 65 now, I think. So a little bit older. Yeah, I learned if you don't know something, you just ask someone who's smarter than you. And typically, older people have more experience. They're smarter, right?
Hmm.
And so when I got laid off, I went to Mary Beth McCormick, who at the time was the head of the Ohio State Center for Real Estate. I'm like, hey, like I had no clue what I'm going to do. I was going on this banking route and I didn't really like it, but I got this real estate. I know you're a center for real estate. What should I do? And she's like, hey, no problem. This happens all the time. It's probably a good thing. She rattled off 3 people for me to meet, and she set up meetings. So one was Paul Krim, who is a huge commercial broker. One, I think, was a commercial lender for large multifamily complexes. And then the third one was Brent Crawford, who is a founder and owner of Crawford Hoying, who built Bridge Park. And I set up lunches, happy hours with them, met with all of them. And to this day, I still talk to the first two, or Brent. I talk to Brent and Paul Krim still. And whenever I have a question, like I'll email Brent Crawford and he'll like get back to me like within a few minutes. So, but my first mentor was Jeff Tyndall. So I actually met him through cold calling when I was at JP Morgan. I cold called a property owner who owned like a 20 unit in Grandview. And I'm like, hey, can I buy your property in Grandview? He's like, how much money you got? I'm like, 50,000. It's like, if you've got like 5 million, maybe, but I can introduce you to my real estate broker who is partnered with me on the deal. And he's young, he's scrappy like yourself. Why don't you talk to him and start to network with him? So before I got laid off, I was meeting with him semi-regularly. And when I got laid off, I got my license. When you get your real estate sales license, you need to have your license held at a real estate brokerage.
Yeah.
So most people hang their real estate license at places like Keller Williams, Howard Hanna,
Max, all.
yeah, Remax, exactly. But there's smaller brokerages, and what people don't realize is all those large brokerages, a lot of them are actually owned by a conglomerate that owns them all. So, but then there's smaller brokerages like what my business partner, or kind of jumping the gun there, what my mentor had. And so I approached him. I'm like, hey, who should I interview? He's like, well, interview these other people, see what they have to say. But, before you make any decisions, come back to me. I got my real estate broker's license. I'm the only agent, only licensee there. So you can just hang your license under the brokerage and do whatever you want with. So that's how we really started REAFCO back in 2019. Jeff and I were the 2 licensees there. I quickly built it up with his mentorship, and now we have 35 real estate agents. We've got probably like 10. It's getting the summer right now, so we've got a bunch of people through our internship program, so maybe 10, 15 people through our internship, and that's really taken off.
Yeah, no. So like I looked into REAFCO and okay, this is just a small question. Well, like what's the name off of?
Yeah,
Basically, like where does that come from?
it's a real estate and flip-flops company.
Oh, okay. Because I was interested REAFCO. Like, what could that mean?
Yeah, my business partner had it, Jeff, as like kind of like a joke. He's like real estate and flip-flops company because he was very like anti-corporate,
Yeah.
always wore flip-flops. And then, yeah, when it took off, he was kind of embarrassed by it. He's like, just don't tell like people what. But it turned into kind of like a running joke. It's kind of funny, yeah.
Yeah, that's one thing I actually really like. So when I visited your office, I was like, dang, like this is like nice, casual. It's not like stuffy. It's not like
Yeah.
corporate-y. Kind of like literally the opposite of what you experienced probably at JP Morgan.
Yep, exactly.
So that's just so interesting. But I mean, I looked at these numbers and it's kind of insane. Like if I was looking at REAFCO and it's somewhere around, since you guys have started, 3,600 transactions,
Mhm.
over $530 million in volume.
Yeah.
That's a lot. How do you develop people, like 33 agents, to be able to be high producing agents? Because that's something that I've talked with a lot of brokers, and that's something they really struggle bringing in agents that actually will be producing results for the brokerage. How do you develop them?
Yeah. So I'm one of the things that we do that a lot of other brokerages don't necessarily like doing is I really don't want to recruit a real estate agent. I want to recruit someone who's entrepreneurial, who wants to work hard, and who's ideally not licensed yet. A lot of brokers they'll call other realtors who are at other brokerages because you need to be at a brokerage if you're a realtor, and they'll try to recruit them. But I want to teach someone from the ground up, like what to do, what not to do, not make sure they're not having any bad habits, making sure that they're ethical, that they're doing everything right. And that also creates loyalty. And furthermore, no real estate agent likes paying money to the brokerage, right?
Yeah.
So when you're just trying to recruit agents on like costs and stuff, it's very cutthroat and it's a race to the bottom. More so, I'm training people, I'm mentoring people, and reinvesting the splits that we do take into systems to be able to help them produce more. So investing in stuff like Mojo Dialer, which is a calling system to be able to call cold calls. Our CRM Follow Up Boss is a really good CRM. It's expensive, but it's really good. So we have systems for everything. But yeah, we recruit a lot of people right out of college. Ideally, we recruit people who don't even go to college. Some of my best agents never went to college.
Mhm.
I'm always looking for people who own investment property. Maybe they own 1, 2 rental properties, and they're like, hey, 18-year-old washing dishes at a restaurant, but I've got this rental property that I saved up for and I did sweat equity. I want to buy more, but it's hard to scale. It's like, okay, well, hey, you've clearly got work ethic.
Mhm.
And this is based on a true story, Patrick Drury. You clearly got work ethic. Why don't you come work here? I'll show you how to make commissions. I'll show you how to help investors do the same thing. Maybe investors that are doctors, attorneys that want to invest in real estate, but they have more money, so they can
Yeah.
buy bigger stuff. You make a big commission, and then you save that commission and buy more rental properties. So that's kind of how we developed our 35 agents at this point. It's just through mentorship, teaching them how to become an investor and buy their own rental properties.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, something I'm really interested in that you told me beforehand is that with your investment portfolio, because you have your own, of course,
Yep.
you have about 100 doors right now.
Yeah.
So you said that you never sell. Like you've said, out of all the properties you've bought, you've only sold three.
Hmm.
How do you decide with agents? Because with the people that you bring on into your business, they're an investment. You are investing that they'll eventually be turning a profit for you. Of course, like necessarily, it's not just to make money off of them; it's to develop. But they are still investment. How do you decide when it is time to cut loose an agent, or has that not happened yet for you?
Yeah, I don't think I've ever actually told someone that they can't work at REAFCO anymore. I've been close maybe a couple times, but most of the time, I set expectations. If you don't meet these expectations, it's just not a good fit. And they've always naturally left. Uh,
Mhm.
so yeah, they'll leave, or they just won't come to the office and they'll just be like a stagnant agent who holds their license, which doesn't really cost a brokerage anything. If they make one sale a year, that's good as long as they're not getting us sued or
Yeah.
get dragging our name through the mud. It doesn't really cost me anything.
Mm-hmm.
But
Okay, that makes sense. I'm interested with eventually you guys start off a commercial division, right?
yeah.
How did you guys get that started off?
Yeah, so I've got 100 residential doors, and my biggest deal is a 24 unit that I own. I've got like a 12 unit, an 8 unit, 6 unit. and then a bunch of 4 units, duplexes, single families. At some point, you're just like, hey, I've got all this money. With me being a real estate professional, I've got real estate professional's tax status. So it benefits me to continue to buy properties, cost segregate, which will offset my commission and will offset my wife's a corporate attorney in public finance. So she makes a lot of money. If I can buy properties, cost segregate it, use the tax advantages, I can write off my commissions pretty aggressively
Hmm.
instead of instead of depreciating over 30 years, I can depreciate, in 4 or 5 years through bonus depreciation.
Yeah.
So at a certain point, these $200,000 duplexes, they don't move the needle. I'd have to buy a bunch of them every year for it to do anything. So it's like, okay, what's next? Yeah, you can buy 24 units, but in Columbus, Ohio, it's very, very difficult to find 24 units, and it's even more difficult to convince someone who owns them to sell them. I mean, why? It's a
Doesn't
growing
make
market.
sense. Yeah.
So unless I want to go to Cleveland, Dayton, Springfield, these um, tertiary markets or these declining markets, I gotta move on to something else. And so that's where commercial comes in. So I own a 10,000 square foot daycare. I'm not allowed within, anywhere near the daycare. No, just kidding. But I own a
That's a
10,
joke.
okay, that's a joke. I'm not on any lists. I own a 10,000 square foot daycare, 24,000 square foot warehouse, and I own the 4 office buildings, one of which we occupy on Parsons Avenue. So those are anywhere from 800,000 to a few $1 million deals, and cost segregating a $3 million deal gives you a lot more write offs than cost segregating a $200,000 deal. You're depreciating a lot more. So that's where we got into real estate, and then I just put a commercial deal in a contract a couple hours ago,
Oh, wow.
and co-oping with another agent in my office. I found the deal. He brought the buyer, and it's going to be a over $100,000 commission that we're splitting. So we each make $50,000. It's $2 million deal. So that commission, $50,000, for me on my side is a lot more than 3% on a $200,000 deal. It's $6,000.
Yeah.
So it's just moving on to those bigger deals, and then that's where our commercial division came in to
Mm.
play.
Okay. So one thing I'm really interested in is you were an athlete and not just like you were very competitive. You were very good. So you have to compete. You have to be putting yourself number one.
Yep.
How do you how are you able to go and collaborate with people so easily? Because one of the things I was reading, someone sent me this about you. It was something about how REAFCO has an environment of entrepreneurship, and like there's all these companies that have been started. It says 3 property management companies, 1 inspection agency, syndication company. You're very competitive. You're trying to be at the top, but at the same time, like even the story you just mentioned, you're being collaborative with people. You're working together with them. Was there a struggle with that? Did it take time to grow into that, or have you always been like, hey, if the money makes sense, let's do it. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, I mean, I think I've always been cognizant of trying to make money with other people. I would say, in the beginning, I was definitely like a liability. I mean, I would get onto like these Facebook groups, and I would like get on these email chains like when things weren't going my way, or if I was like pretty drunk at night, and I would just like create these memes, and I would like piss people off, and I would burn bridges. Um, you know, and whether I was right or wrong in me like, talking shit to these people during this certain time, which maybe sometimes I was justified, maybe sometimes I wasn't. Ultimately, like it's not a professional way of doing things, and I would burn bridges. And then, there's some people in our industry that, yeah, like I want to tell them to like, go kick rocks. But if I do that to them, and then okay, they have a buyer who wants to buy one of my listings, or I got a buyer who wants to buy one of their listings in the future, it's like, okay, now I've burned that bridge,
Yeah.
and that's something like this I've really struggled with as a broker because of those 35 agents I have, I think maybe 90% of them are under the age of 30. And so they're all kind of like acting like I acted. And I got to teach them like, hey, I get it. It's frustrating, but you got to like bite your lip, and you got to be the
Mm.
bigger man or woman. We do have one woman agent at our brokerage, and try to move on, but, and get the deal done. So yeah, that's something I definitely struggled with and have matured with age.
Mhm. Is it One thing I'm interested in is like a lot of people talk about like corporate culture, and then that's like super corporate-y. And I'm
Yeah.
interested, like, how much do you believe in that for your company?
Yeah, we don't have an HR department at this time. We probably should have one. Fortunately, owning a real estate brokerage, everyone's an independent contractor. So I only have one employee, and so far she hasn't threatened to sue me for anything. But yeah, independent contractors have a little bit less rights. They got a pretty strict independent contractor agreement, which is nice. But yeah, we still try to keep it as professional as possible. It's definitely not the most professional environment, but it's a boiler room filled with sales agents. And
Mhm.
yeah, I don't know if it's unfortunate, but it has turned into a situation where we have one woman at the office who she's a full-time student. She's actually getting married and moving to Michigan. So we're going to go back to being like all guys in a boiler room in a sales environment.
Yeah.
It's definitely like things get said and people curse. I'm having a really hard time not cursing right now. People curse like all the time. And like my wife has to stop me whenever I'm with like my in-laws. It's like, hey, you said like the F word 5 times in the last like 2 minutes. You got to like roll it back. So yeah, it's professional. And I think our clients appreciate that. Our clients are not hiring us to be the most politically
Like stand up
correct.
guys. Yeah.
And we are stand-up guys, but
It's more of to get results done.
right. They
That's
want
the
they
thing.
want they want results, and
Yeah.
the whole DEI kind of saga, which I think is kind of dying out. I mean, I'm definitely not the most politically correct person, especially like when I'm at my private clubs talking to my group of friends. But you look at my brokerage, I mean, I think white straight males are the minority in my brokerage.
Yeah, I've been there. I can actually confirm. I've
Yeah.
been there, and it's like it's amazing, like actually what you can build.
Yeah.
That's the thing. And I think it speaks to the power of getting results done.
Mm.
That's the biggest thing. Because when I was there, like, yes, obviously, like people aren't gonna be like the most professionally dressed, but from what it looks like with 33 agents, you're getting stuff done. It doesn't matter if like, hey, if I have a dress shirt on or not. Like it doesn't matter. Like it's just, am I getting stuff done? Are my clients seeing results? And is the brokerage getting money? Is it making sure that people are getting the best deal, nothing illegal?
Right.
Honestly, yeah, I could see that.
Yeah. And I think one of the cool things about our office culture is, you know, all my m- all my top producers, like my top 20 producers, they're in the office every week. Most of them are in the office 6, 7 days a week. So, I mean, you walk in the office and you're gonna see a bunch of people and you're gonna be able to talk to people. And that's important for collaboration. I'm partnered personally on personal deals with probably 5 different agents in my real estate brokerage.
Hmm.
So you're not going to get that collaboration by sitting at home in your personal office doing Zoom calls with your fellow agents.
Yeah, that kind of collaboration's only in person. So I'm actually interested. This like so with these like businesses that I mentioned, like when these agents come up to you with them, how do you decide if you're going to be going in a joint venture with them, or is it like, hey, you're not going to be agent anymore? You're going to deal mostly with this property company. Like, how does that work?
Yeah, it's completely up to them as far as like, if they start their own company, I mean, they can go do whatever they want. I have people who have landscaping companies, like you said, property management, syndication. I mean, I don't have a contract with them to be an agent for X amount of years. It's whatever they want to do.
Hmm.
As far as me deciding if I want to partner with people or not, I try to look at the person's personality. If I picture real business partnerships and real estate partnerships as difficult, if not more difficult than marriage.
Hmm.
If I have a fight with my wife, we can always have makeup sex and like figure it out. I'm not going to go have sex with my business partner. Although, they are very good looking, group of individuals, I'm not my,
Yeah.
um, so yeah, I try to look at the person. A lot of times it depends if I have extra money at the time or not. And if I partner with someone, I don't want to buy 1 or 2 deals. I want to buy 100 deals with them over the course of 30 years. And, I've definitely missed the mark on some opportunities by passing up on partnerships. Even though I own a lot of properties, I would say, and compared to the average person, I'd have a high risk tolerance.
Yeah.
I would say I passed up a lot of opportunities that if I were more risk on and willing to take more of a financial risk, I'd be better off right now. But you never know how things are going to work, and I'm
Yeah.
happy where I'm at now.
Mhm. And I'm interested kind of so with REAFCO, what does the future look like? Is it expanding into other cities or is it, hey, we like it in the Columbus market? How does it look like with you as a leader there? Are you eventually going to be like, hey, like it's time to me for me to move on? I got maybe not better things, but it's just different things.
Yeah. I would say REAFCO is always changing and adapting. A few years ago, we actually made the decision to get MLS access into all the different markets. So we're brokering deals in Cleveland, Toledo, Cincinnati, Dayton, Springfield, anywhere in Ohio.
Hmm.
And on the commercial side of things, we'll do collaborative things with brokerages in other states too. You got to be a little bit. There's a little bit, some more loops to hop through with that, but those are mostly on like the big commercial leasing and big commercial sales that we'll do that. But for the future, we're already in all of Ohio. My business partner Jeff Tyndall, he actually sold a portion of his ownership to Mark Rice, and he's younger than I am. I have a wife who's pregnant now. I want 10
Oh,
kids.
congrats.
Yeah, yeah, thanks. She keeps yelling at me because it's pretty early to announce, and I keep telling everyone podcasts. And
Yeah, no, that's fine.
but by the time this comes out, hopefully it'll be through the first trimester. So,
Mhm.
but so we brought Mark on. He's definitely more of a visionary than I am. Jeff was a visionary, and he still is, but he's kind of doing his own thing a little bit with more commercial warehouse flex space. And never really wanted from the beginning to be super, super involved with brokerage. So
Mhm.
Mark has expressed interest and has worked really hard over the years and has earned the right to buy into the brokerage. So he's brought a whole new breath of life into the brokerage, and he wants to go to other states. He wants to go to Puerto Rico. We love traveling to South America, so that's a dream. But yeah, I would say sky's the limit. I'm definitely not tired at this point. I wake up every day really, really excited to go to work. Excited to work. I work 7 days a week. I used to work 7 days a week, like 12, 14 hours a day. I
Oh my
definitely
gosh.
don't do that anymore. I love playing squash. I love golfing. I love drinking. I love spending time with my wife, my dog, and looking forward to spending time with my kids in the future. So I've definitely, and then also in the community, I volunteer a lot of organizations. I love German Village Society, love the Athletic Club of Columbus, love Columbus Country Club, Urban Land Institute, Ohio State Center for Real Estate. So I go to a lot of events and meetups, and so I'm trying to round out my professional career and focus a little bit more. It sucks because I'm not scaling as some of my peers that I see who have elected to not be more well-rounded and kind of get more involved in the community. So that sucks a little bit, but I enjoy it more. I like hosting. Bought like a $2 million house in Deschler on the park
Dang.
in German Village. So I love hosting fundraisers there and working on furnishing that. We're in the German Village House and Garden tour. So
Mhm.
we'll have 3,000 strangers to our house in a few months.
Yeah, sounds like fun.
But yeah, sky's the limit. So
Okay, one thing I'm interested in. So, I was talking with you about this when we met earlier. REAFCO primarily focuses on investment property.
Mhm.
That's kind of like your main thing. Like you're not gonna be like selling, it's not gonna be like $1 million listing 2 million. It's mostly like that 200, 300,000 property range. Like with your volume, you told me like the average sale price was like 200K. Is there any foreseeable future where you see it like there's going to be a REAFCO like luxury division or like something where it's not just investment property along with that expansion into other states, other countries?
yeah, I mean that would be great. And don't get me wrong, if my buddies at the country club are like, hey Remington, I want to go out and I want to check out these $1 million homes in Bexley this weekend, and I want you to represent us as our realtor. Like, yeah, hey, 3% of $100,000 is $30,000, whether it's investment property, a primary residence, or a hotel. So
Yeah.
we'll do whatever. And a lot of our agents do work with a lot of first time home buyers and sellers. I would say with our current group of agents, we're probably not the best suited to be selling homes in Upper Arlington and New Albany. We got to buy nicer cars for that, and maybe start wearing suits. But yeah, I won't rule it out. I think it's more likely that we go heavier into commercial real estate,
Mhm.
really start focusing on the different asset classes, especially as we build our wealth. Like I said, some people do it really, really well. There's investors out there like Terry Summers, Tommy Har, who do a lot of residential. They scale that up.
Yeah.
I don't hate residential, but residential's tough. So like with everything I got going on, I have to hire a full-time assistant to just make sure that stuff doesn't get away with me on the residential side.
Yeah, it's a lot to deal with
Yeah.
tenants and all of that.
Where if you buy I mean, my daycare and my warehouse, you put those on triple net leases, which if you guys don't know what triple net leases are, basically any expense that you could have as the owner, you pass on to the tenant
Mhm.
and they're responsible for it. You sign longer leases. You're not dealing with Section 8, HUD tenants, which I do a lot of Section 8 HUD, but it's definitely a different ballpark. Not only with the tenants that you're going to lease up, but the government is not efficient.
Yeah.
CMHA owes me 6 months in back rent for one of my properties. And if anyone from CMHA is listening right now, please pay me because I can front $6,000, but some landlords that are starting out definitely can't. So
Yeah.
yeah, definitely more commercial, I think.
Uh-huh. Yeah. That makes sense. It's interesting kind of like also it becomes like you're moving up in the real estate world, like you're doing all of these bigger deals, like you have more agents to manage. It doesn't really make sense for you to add like another rental property and it's like, man, like what if this tenant like starts complaining? Like what if they decide not to pay? It's like, okay, yeah, why not just go and get the triple net lease
Yeah.
and just go. He's not gonna do anything. They're not gonna complain. They got it covered and everything.
Yep.
So I wanted to get into a little bit about what you do on the personal side,
Mhm.
because you don't just participate in these organizations, but you donate a lot of money,
Mhm.
like $100,000 endowment to the Ohio State Rifle. It's like the
Yeah.
team, right? Or is it
That's the thing. Yeah.
association?
Yeah.
Like, I'm interested kind of what makes you such a big giver as well, because we talked about this as well. You're a very big giver to all of these organizations, and it's not just like you're participating. You're actually like going out and standing out as one of the main givers. Like, what motivates you to do that?
Yeah, so I'm not religious. I married a German Catholic, so her and her family are very religious. And one of the things that I really appreciate about their religion, and I think most religions, is that the tithing. So they would give like 10% of their income. So, I figured when I started making really good money, and more money than I ever thought I would make in getting into sales, I'm like, okay, well, I should start donating some of this, right? And it's a write off and just give back. So fortunately, 10% of what I make starts to equal a lot of money. So I've got a fair amount of money to give. And then, I've convinced my business partners once the businesses start, making money, it's like, hey, let's do 10% here. And so one thing that I'm very passionate about is rifle. I grew up, I'm very grateful for Ohio State for giving me the opportunity to compete and travel the world and get a scholarship. And I think it really helped with my development. So I give back to that, and I don't really expect anything in return from that.
Mm.
Um, but I do get really good football tickets seat selection because of it. So that's a good.
That's a perk.
The other stuff's, I'm not 100% unselfish about it. So I donate to Ohio State Center for Real Estate, to Urban Land Institute, to maybe like 5, 6 other Ohio State organizations. I want to start finding other organizations that I can donate to, where I can kind of get something back in return. So Ohio State, I get a lot of agents from there. Because I donate money, the people know who I am, so they ask me to speak on their panels. And when I speak on their panels, I say, "Hey, come work at REAFCO. I'll show you how to make money through real estate investing and obtain financial freedom and broker real estate." Through Urban Land Institute, I get access to a lot of potential mentors. So Ryan Shemansky with Avenue Partners, and uh, Michael Simpson with NAI Ohio Equities, Justin Metzler, a
Mhm.
bunch of different mentors who, whenever I have a question, I can ask. And through that mentorship, it's invaluable. I mean, they told me to go join these private clubs, these golf clubs, and these private gyms where, you know, if I go there and I play squash every day and I go golf on the weekends, that gives me access to other business opportunities. And then I start partnering with people on these commercial deals, and I get access to a breadth of knowledge. So yeah, I think if you're set up to be able to do it, definitely donate money. Try to be calculated in what organizations you donate money to. I feel bad and care about battered women. But Freedom a la carte, am I going to donate money to them? Maybe if in the future, but for now, donate money to real estate professional non-for-profit organizations. I'll cater my luncheons from Freedom a la carte, but yeah, when I write my $10,000 checks at the end of the year, give it to ULI.
Mhm. One thing I'm interested in is you were telling me about like how you have been trying to make your life rounded out, and you've noticed that there's people that are like growing faster than you,
Mhm.
which is really interesting. Like you are very, very successful. What do you see as your competition? Is it just other brokerages or how does it seem?
So I mean, it's kind of hard in my industry because my competition can also be uh, people I co-op with. So my competition, Rich Russo, Missy Lynn, Joe Jackson, Jimmy Lou, all 34 other agents at my real estate brokerage are my competition.
Mhm.
So yeah, they're my competition, but I also make a bunch of money with them, and they give me deals that sometimes I buy, and I give them deals sometimes they buy, or we co-op on $1 million transaction where they have the listing and I have the buyer, or vice versa. So it's kind of odd in my profession. My competitions also can be not my competition at times.
Yeah.
There's other real estate investors out there that are competing against me, and especially when it's an off-market big campus deal. There's only so many people who are buying apartment complexes on campus, and you kind of know them, and we're all calling the same people. But as long as, again, it's just about keeping your nose clean
Mhm.
and making sure that you're carrying yourself to a high standard. That way, people don't think that you're screwing them over or talking bad about them. Because, like I said earlier, at the end of the day, even though I'm competing against you on maybe this deal, I might be working with you on the next deal. Um, but yeah, and then as far on the investment side of things, like take Tommy Har or Terry Summers, and you can take it to any real estate investor, even on Meet Kevin, etc. Yeah, I think they're my competition, but I really look at them for guidance and for mentorship and be like, oh, what are they doing well? What things can I R&D, rip off and duplicate?
Yeah.
Okay, I see they're on social media. So a big thing for me for 2025 is I hated social media. I really just went on social media to like look at inappropriate gifs and send those to like my buddies in a group chat, and look at women in bikinis. But so now it's like, okay, social media is a very great tool that a lot of people use really, really effectively that I just was not doing. I hired a social media manager, Aiden,
Mhm.
and he's like, hey, I've been talking to a lot of because he does a lot in real estate, and he's like, I'm talking to a lot of my clients, and when I bring up REAFCO, like they don't really know who you guys are, but I see, like, I go into your office and I see your transaction, and clearly you can afford me, clearly you're doing a lot of business. So it's like getting the word out there. And so 2025, I've really been working on that, and that's why I appreciate you having me, Vlad, coming on your podcast. So it's getting on TikTok and Instagram, Facebook, and making these like awkward videos so they can go viral. And that's stuff that my competition, like, all those people I named off before have done really, really well, that I'm trying to kind of now catch up on.
Mhm. One thing I'm interested in is what drives you now, because you're very successful. Your wife is very successful. You told me you guys have a very nice home. You have a business. What is driving you on to go and like rip off and duplicate? Hey, like now I'm gonna go into social media. Is it just for further growth, or is there like eventually, hey, I'm gonna be like a real estate developer, or eventually I'm gonna do something else that's even bigger than this? What's continuing you to like work these like 7-day weeks?
Yeah, I would say right now, so I'm successful and I'm pretty content on where I'm at, and I'm happy with the amount of money that I have and the amount of wealth I have. I think the thing that one, going out and buying a $2 million house and having a 20, depending on the amount of landscaping I did for the month, having a $25,000 commitment, that definitely like put me in a corner and motivates me to wake up and continue to work every day. But I would say the agents that I bring on, being able to develop them and turn them into high producing investors, high producing agents, seeing their success, that drives me every day. It's like, okay, how can I leverage my CRM more on the brokerage level? How can I advertise for the brokerage so I can get more buyer leads, more seller leads, bring more brand awareness to REAFCO, train my agents better, lead them better. So that way they can build their wealth. And then hopefully when they have a deal that they need to partner with someone or want to partner with someone, I'm the first person they call. So that's what motivates me now. I think in the future, in addition to that, I want to have a lot of kids. So
Mhm.
I want double digits. Ellen's like, I don't want double digits. I'm like, it's not really up to you. But so I want to have kids, and I think that's going to really drive me to continue to grow.
That's interesting. Okay, is there a reason for like the lot of kids? Like, just I just really want it. Was interesting.
Yeah, I trying to figure out like what can be appropriately said. If you have you ever watched Idiocracy?
I don't know what that
So,
is.
so the premise of the movie is that dumber people have more kids sooner than smarter people, which I'm not saying I'm smart. I got a 19 on the ACTs. Fortunately, I was a student athlete, so thanks
It
Ohio
carried you
State
over.
for overlooking that. But the premise is that over time, you just have like less smart people because less smart people keep having more kids sooner.
Yeah.
So I think I want to kind of like have 10 kids, and but I think realistically, I like having a big community. I came from a small family. I'm an only child. My wife has a great family, a lot of kids, a lot of families. So, and then I have the means to do it. So I am not big into nice cars. I'm not big into nice watches. The
Mhm.
only really, really nice thing I bought in my life was that house, which I'm able to share with my friends, my family, and the organizations that I'm a part of. So, yeah, what else am I going to spend the money on? So, I might as well start having a lot of kids. And then having kids is pretty fun.
Yeah. Dang. Okay, that's really interesting though, because like even as you have gone successful, like you don't splurge on anything. Like you're just sticking to what you have. And has there ever been a temptation? Like you're around like all of these athletic clubs, like all of these net worth individuals. Is it more of like, have you ever had that need of like, hey, I need to also be like this person, like they're driving a $300,000 car. Maybe I should get one too, or anything like that?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I just upgraded from a Toyota Camry to a 2015 I don't know. It's a Mercedes, but like it was one of these guys who I was brokering a deal with, and he's like, "Okay, now you got to buy my car," and he gave me a pretty good deal. But
All
now
right.
that I have the Mercedes, it's income creep for sure. So fortunately, like going back to the house hacking strategy, I house hacked probably like 5, 6 deals, and Ellen was top of her class in law school. She got a job at Squire Patton Boggs, making like 215 a year. And we were still like living in a duplex. We'd buy another duplex, move into it, rent out the other side.
Oh wow.
We were renting. And then we'd go rent a house in German Village for like $900 a month. So we were living way below our means. And yeah, it's definitely as soon as you get something nice, a nicer car, you start renting a luxury apartment, you get a really nice watch, you go start eating at really nice restaurants. It's hard to go back. Fortunately, I'm at the point where I can spend a little bit more money.
Mhm.
I definitely don't spend as much money as I can. But I think the private clubs, although, yeah, you're around people that are spending more money, you're also around people that are very, very successful, and they're all entrepreneurs, and they all own businesses, and they are all a lot smarter than you are. So just the theory of surrounding yourself with smarter people. These are the CEOs of, Donato's, L Brands, Town Hall, although that's like a sore subject right now. So yeah, I mean, you talk about mentors, and then that's where, so Brent Crawford every other year has our brokerage come into his office over at Bridge Park. And one of the first years, we would maybe had like 5 people, 10 people. We weren't that big at the time. And so he was a lot more blunt. It was good. Now that I bring like 30 agents in, he's like, okay, I'm not going to curse and like, oh, I like tax secrets as much. But the first year he's like, one of my agents raised his hand and is like, hey, what do I go do to network? What's a good thing to network? And he's like, hey, go hang out with, or go join a country club and hang out with all the gamblers. So I'm like, hey, that's like a pretty good idea. I've made like 80,000 as my first year in sales, and I rent a $600 apartment that I split with my girlfriend. And so, but maybe I'll go join the Columbus Country Club. And so I did that, and yeah, it definitely paid dividends.
Okay, yeah. That's really interesting because like I've talked with some people and it's like, oh, like networking, like it's not gonna help you. Like it doesn't like really, it's as long as you get the job done, like it should be fine. But for you, it's almost like kind of like you get the job done, and as you network, as you meet with these people, it's like helping you develop, it's helping you get mentored. And what I'm interested in is, so like if we think about it, like the people that you are targeting to join to join your brokerage, they can't necessarily just come and join like the Athletic Club of Columbus. They can't necessarily just walk into a country club and be like, hey, let me just join. What would be your advice for people like that, where they're like, hey, I want to be able to network with people that are successful that can mentor me, but it's how can I get started in that?
Yeah, well, you should come to our quarterly real estate meetups, REAFCO meetups. So we do those like every 3 times a year. So come to those. There's a lot of real estate. Columbus, Ohio is a great place to be in real estate. There's Elevate meetups. Tommy Har has meetups. Coin has meetups. There's ULI, Ohio State Center for Real Estate, CCIIR. I mean, you could, if you wanted to, you could probably get free drinks and free food 4 out of 7 days a week.
Yeah.
If you want to, and just going through to real estate meetups. I mean, it's tiring. So yeah, go to Facebook, and on the events, go to meetup.com, go to Eventbrite, Bigger Pockets, real estate meetups. There's a bunch of outlets out there, but you don't need that much money to join a country club. And that's kind of like the hack with country clubs. Actually, if you're under the age of 35, a lot of these country clubs sometimes are free to join.
Oh, wow.
Under 35. So you got to pay the monthly fee, which can be a lot of money.
But it's an investment. That's the thing. Yeah.
And sometimes it's no more expensive than joining a Planet Fitness, or what's the like
Crunch Fitness. I don't know.
So I don't know. My buddies say sometimes it's like $100-200 to join those. So yeah, a lot have breaks for under 35, and I probably have 12 of my agents that are actually members at the athletic club. So it's great.
Yeah. I'm interested now with the experience you have. What are like some of the biggest life lessons you have from real estate with all of this mentorship that you've had, and now you have developed agents on your own?
Yeah, I think a huge lesson was that real estate's not like a get rich quick scheme. A lot of wholesalers and a lot of real estate gurus will kind of play it off as a get rich quick thing. And you can make a lot of money in a relatively short amount of time if you've got a lot of experience, you really know what you're doing. But if you're starting out, you don't have a lot of experience, you don't know what you're doing. So real estate is a get wealthy really, really slow kind of business. So I think that realizing that, going back to not burning bridges, is really, really important. I think stress management, real estate, being a landlord is really, really good. I've had people die in my apartments. I've had murders, floods, fires. I mean, one of my houses literally just burned down.
Oh my
Maybe like
gosh.
2 months ago. Yeah, actually, the house I used to live in on Lizelle in German Village. So that was pretty bad. But every time something crazy like this happens, it is pretty rewarding when you make it through it. And yeah, you're super stressed out in the beginning, but then you make it through and you're like, okay, like that wasn't that bad. I learned a lot. I figured out how to deal with it. And then when it happens the next time, you're like, this is not a big deal. So I'll have my buddies who will call me up and be like, hey, Remington, like I got a flood in my basement. Like, what do I do? I'm like, well, you got an unfinished basement. So like, unless you got like really valuables on the floor, like you're probably fine. So let me come over there and
Mm.
figure out what the problem is and you'll get over it. So I think that's going to translate a lot into having kids. So yeah, if you want to learn how to deal with stress, buy a rental property in the ghetto and you'll learn really quickly.
Yeah. I'm also really interested in the one thing is with a real estate agent, you don't need to go to college for that. You went and had a 9 to 5 job. What would be your recommendation more? Like if you could redo your life and let's just say Remington redid it, would you have went back to college, back to Ohio State?
Yeah, you know, I loved shooting and I loved being a student athlete. So I don't think if I could go back, I love Ohio State. I love the connections I made at Ohio State. One of my friends introduced me to my wife,
Oh, nice.
that I met at Ohio State. He was on this rifle team that introduced me to her. Uh, I wouldn't take it back personally, but obviously I don't know, the butterfly effect. I don't know what that would happen. I wouldn't if I didn't know that was going to happen, yeah, I would definitely not go to college. I think college, and I think you're going to start to see this more, is super overrated.
Yeah, that's
Uh,
what I've noticed.
yeah, it's like it's bizarre that the government will allow you to go and get like an art history degree and give you like $200,000 of student loans, and then be like, okay, you got to pay me back. It's like, what are you going to do with an art history degree or like a diversity degree, and how you make money on that. And not only how you make money on that, but how you going to start paying back your student loans. And there's no financial literacy taught
Mm.
unless you're specifically in a finance class. And even like I was a finance major.
Yeah.
If I didn't have that econ background, I find even finance at Fisher, which Fisher's great college, didn't teach you how to manage your money or like a simple balance sheet. But yeah, I don't know. Again, like I said, some of my agents, my best agents, did not go to college, and a lot of them are full blown members at the athletic club. And when they sit down at the bar, and one of these big CEOs who has either generational wealth or owns multiple businesses and C-suite, they never sit down and with their whiskey and ask them like, oh, where'd you go to college? No,
Mhm.
they're like, I own 40 rental properties that I manage and I'm 20 years old and I am a real estate broker and I own this property management company. They're never like, oh, well, I'm not going to talk to you or I think less of you because you don't have a finance degree. Nah, if anything, they're like starstruck and they're like, oh my God, if I could go back and when I was a 20 and if I had invested in real estate, I wish I would have done that. So yeah, I think if I could go back, and still meet my wife and meet all my friends and have the same experiences in rifle and drinking in college and the kegerators, keg stands I've done, I would do it, but yeah,
The more reason why I'm asking is like for let's say the 18-year-old that just got out of high school,
yeah,
would you recommend for them to go to college?
no, I'd say come work at REAFCO.
Okay, yeah, see, that makes sense. Okay. One thing that I'm really fascinated by is kind of how you've been able to do all of this and delegate
Mm,
with your business.
yep.
You have a lot of different things that you jump in. How do you manage making sure that, hey, like stuff is getting done, but like I need to make sure that like people can do their stuff and I will do my stuff?
Yeah, so automation is huge, AI systems, I think like that's the first step. Um, After that, writing really, really good procedures that integrate these systems into, so basically from start to finish, like if I give you on how to write an offer. Like I've got a 200-page uh, procedure on how to write an offer. So my goal is if I give you this and I give you the login of my dot loop, you should be able to write an offer, and if you can't, ask me a question because there's a gap in my procedure. So, and I've got hundreds of procedures. So you got good systems, you got good procedures that leverage those systems. And then the last part is, delegate through labor. And right now we live in a global economy and that's going to continue to happen. So hire virtual assistants. You can hire a virtual assistant for $3 an hour that speaks better English than I can, especially because
Yeah.
now they can use ChatGPT
Yeah.
and AI. So hire them to replace yourself. So, we have virtual assistants that do cold calling, prospecting, pretty much anything that they're allowed to do, they do.
Mhm.
My mom crashed her car years ago, and she's like, "Hey, I bought a new car, and insurance fixed my 2012 Camry. You got a 2010 Camry. Why don't you give the 2010 to Ellen because she's driving a 2005, and you take the 2012?" I'm like, "Okay, great." She's like, "Okay, but you got to figure out how to get it to Ohio," which she wanted me to come visit her. But I'm like, I'm in the middle of a bunch of deals. I don't know how to freight a car, and I don't want to take time because I've got 30 deals in contract. Let me have Clarence go through and figure out how to my virtual assistant in the Philippines that I pay $3 an hour. Let me go have him go figure out how to, and this was back before ChatGPT was out in 2020. Figure out how to freight a car, give me 3 proposals, recommend which proposal is the best and why,
Oh, wow.
and then have him give him my credit card, have him book it and send it out. And so did that, and within a week, my car was, out front. So
Mhm.
leverage virtual assistants to do your job for you.
Yeah, dang. How do you balance creating systems? Because some business owners, like, they might be creating like a system for employees, and then it's like it doesn't work, and now it's just like, do you do you just have that mentality where if a system you created a system, an employee goes through it, it doesn't work? Do you assume that it's your fault first, always? Like you made the system incorrectly, or is it the employee?
Yeah, no, definitely. You got to take it on yourself. So, okay, the employee goes through the system or the procedure. They figure out if they get stuck, they got to come back to me and be like, "Hey, this is where I got stuck. Okay, I got to go to the procedure and see if it's in the procedure. If it's not in the procedure, you add it. If it is in the procedure, you go back to the employee and be like, "Hey, no, this isn't my fault. This is your fault. Did you
Mhm.
not understand the procedure? Do I need to edit it, or did you just not see it? And were you not reading?"
Mhm.
And if it's them not reading, it's like, okay, that's a strike.
Yeah.
And then, after a few strikes, hey, listen, appreciate your work, but it's probably not the best fit for you because I wrote a procedure and you're just not reading. I need to find someone who can read.
Okay. All right. That makes sense. Do you read any books like about like business or anything about to get mentorship from books, or is it more of like this knowledge like for systems like this was from mentors or like your experimentation?
Yeah, like I said, I got a 90 on the ACT, so I read really, really slowly. I've got like slow reading comprehension. So I listen to a lot of podcasts. I
Okay.
think the last book I read was Game of Thrones. And then, besides Naruto, One Piece, all the animes I really don't read.
Hmm. Okay, but it's more of I'm just interested in like how did you learn to develop systems like these? Like
Yeah, through
where it's like
podcasts. So real estate investing podcasts, real estate agent podcasts, business podcasts,
Mhm.
Tim Dillon podcast. No, just kidding. But I love Tim Dillon. Yeah, just business podcasts. They'll bring exactly like this. They'll bring on people and they'll be like, "Hey, how did you scale to this business?" Or like, "Hey, I developed procedures, developed systems, and outsourced to
Mm,
cheap labor that was competent."
makes sense, yeah. And I'm interested now kind of so it's 2025.
Mhm.
Real estate investing is a lot different than when you started in 2017, 2016-ish.
Yeah.
What would you recommend for investors looking for property, looking for that new deal when stuff is a lot more expensive?
Yeah, buy rental properties for REAFCO. But
Yeah, that's what's up.
there's there's different tools. There's seller financing, creative financing. As much as I hate when people reach out to me and say I want it to do seller financing, that's a strategy so you can get in with without going through a bank. There's short-term rentals. So basically you got to figure out real estate investing is pretty easy. It's revenue. It's like any business. Revenue minus expenses equal profits. So there's two sides of that equation. And you got to maximize profits, right? So two variables on the one side of the equation, revenue, expenses. How do I increase revenue? Maybe you turn your long-term tenant into a short-term tenant or a medium-term tenant. That will yield more revenue. And that's going to increase your expenses as well, but that could potentially increase the profit if your revenue increases more than your expenses. Seller financing, creative financing, if you negotiate really sweet seller financing terms, that's going to decrease your expenses.
Hmm.
Again, increase your profits. So those are two strategies um, of many that I could talk about.
Mm-hmm. I'm interested. Yeah, it's more of just like, has it changed since you've become more experienced with real estate investing? Would you say you're now more risky with the properties that you go after, or is it more of I go after what I know now that I understand, like that kind of?
Yeah, I would say I'm more risky after the properties I go after just because I've got more skills and I've got more experience. I can go out and buy a warehouse for $1 million, and I can go to a commercial bank because I got a track record, and they'll give me the $1 million to purchase property, and then they'll give me the $1 million to renovate the property, and they'll put on interest only payments for 2 years, and then I renovate it, I lease it out to a tenant for 5, 10, however many years on a triple net lease, and then I refinance the property or turn that floating debt into 5/1 arms. So, I mean, that's, you know, obviously a lot more risky than you going out and buying your first duplex.
Mhm.
But I think as I have kids and get older, I'm probably not going to go out. I mean, when I got laid off, I maybe saved $80,000 up, and I went out and bought a complete gut job 4 unit for 80,000. In fact, I think I had to like call up my mom because I got a closing table and I had maybe was like short like $1,000. So yeah, I don't think I'm draining my bank account anymore because of the millions of dollars I have in debt and the wife that would kill me if I came home and said, "Hey, we don't have any more money in our bank account." Uh,
Yeah.
yeah.
So, one thing I'm interested in is also you work with a lot of contractors with real estate investing.
Yep.
How do you find contractors that actually, well, one, do a good job, but specifically, two, will consistently do a good job? Because, like, I've talked with a lot of real estate investors. It's like, oh, like, you'll call in a contractor, they'll do one time good job, and then it's like second, third one, like, okay, and then like fourth, fifth one, like a day after, like, it's falling apart again. How do you find people?
Yeah. If you find the answer to that question, please let me know because I have no clue. I have it's hard, especially in Columbus, Ohio. We don't have. It's a very, very hot market, so there's a lot of investors that come into the market, and I, again, unfortunately, no one wants to go to trade schools anymore. And I hope, and that's with the higher education agenda that's been pushed onto our society. It looks a lot sexy going and getting your pipe fitting license to learn how to be a plumber than it does to be a art history major. But if, I was looking for a mate for life, I would much rather, lock down a plumber than a art history major.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, that's not our society right now. So contractors are hard to find. A lot of the contractors that I have are old and dying. So it's difficult. I went out and hired a full-time assistant basically where he has uh 50 years of experience, maybe not 50 years, but 30 years of experience into the contracting world, has those connections that I can tap into. So that's
Mm.
my strategy because I hate working with contractors. That's
Yeah.
something when I partner with someone, it's because I found the deal or I'm bringing the money or I'm bringing the financing, the grade enhancing guarantor on the debt, the mentorship. I'm definitely not bringing the contractors because I hate working with contractors. Even the limited amount of time I have to, like my gardeners right now. I set up like a community garden with my buddies,
Mhm.
and my gardeners that are supposed to come every week, they just don't show up one week. And I'm
Yeah.
like, yo, where are you? And they're like, oh, we got busy. I'm like, okay, what do you mean you got busy? Like, what?
Yeah, it's just
Tough. I don't have the patience for it.
yeah, and it's just such a like it's like an industry that you need, but it's so fragmented. Like there's no one really that's like, hey, like this is the go-to guy. Like people come,
Right.
people go, and
And if there is a go-to guy, on the other side of things, typically they're more expensive. And so you're real estate investing, you're trying to make a profit. You can't go out and hire ServPro to go do all your contract work. It's just not going to work. It's going to take longer. They're going to go through the permitting process on everything, and it's going to be 10 times as much money as you would spend hiring, contractor, crackhead, Jim.
Yeah, that's for sure. One thing I'm really interested in is also your future. Do you have any future in developing properties at all? Like in developing maybe even like 100 units or like 50 units? Like I know like Crawford really well. Like I mean, he developed Bridge Park, like not even like 5 minutes from here. Is there any dreams of ever doing something like that big or no?
Yeah. I think development's very, very sexy and it can be great. But after joining ULI and like networking with a lot of these developers, a lot of them look at what I do and they're like, oh, that's pretty sexy, and I wish I did that. So I think it's kind of like a grass is greener on the other side kind of thing. I'm not ruling it out. And I definitely think like from fees, like as a broker or a syndicator, you can make a lot of money in development. On the investment side of thing, as a LP, I'm sure you can make a lot of money. I think as an investor myself, I can out earn the LP return I would get. I think being a GP, so LP's limited partner, where you're basically just investing money into a deal. General partner is someone who's typically collecting fees on the deal, has ownership on the deal on like more and there's like mezzanine and waterfall. And when my mentors start talking about that, like my eyes glaze over and I feel like I'm learning about commerce places again. I don't understand all of it, but I'm not ruling it out. And I hope to, again, I'm only 30, so I plan to continue to work until, I die. I mean, I take a lot of vacation. I travel 3 months out of the year, but I really like working. So I'll probably, in 10 years, I expect that I'm going to be doing development or much bigger things. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think that's a really good way to end off. Thank you for coming on and sharing your insights because it's really interesting to see like people that have been able to succeed in so much so early, especially just seeing the work that you put in. And kind of like doesn't really matter if you went to college or not. All it matters is really your work ethic. It doesn't matter, hey, just because I dress really nicely, just because I can talk really fancy, or I'm able to go and say all the correct things that like society says, that doesn't mean that you can't be successful.
Yeah.
Like,
You don't think I dress nicely?
no, that's not what I'm saying. It's more of just like professionally wise.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's kind of like, hey, just because I don't do that, that doesn't mean. The only thing is like kind of your ambition.
Mhm.
And that's kind of like, yo, like I have to respect that. Like, I really thank you for coming on. I thank you for sharing your perspective, especially because you're a lot differenter than realtors that we've had in the past. And I really thank you for shining a new light into the industry.
Yeah. Thanks for having me, Vlad.